So join us. See what shenanigans we get into next. Who knows, maybe somewhere along the way, you'll find your favorite winemaker. We've got quite the road trip on the books today. Once again, we're meeting up with the boys from Bedrock, and I was shocked when they said they had another historic vineyard to share with us. Another one? For real? Now, they were quick to share that while Bedrock Heritage is this nestled nugget of fertile Sonoma beauty, Evangelho is something else entirely. For starters, Evangelho is an hour away, while Sonoma is North Bay, between Sacramento and San Francisco. Evangelho is East Bay. Man, it's in the city of Antioch. Yeah, we better get a move on, because Bay Area bridges and traffic ain't no joke.
Hey guys.
Hey guys.
Welcome to Antioch.
Thanks for having us.
To the Dune country.
Yeah. It's so sandy.
A little different than Sonoma.
Yes,
here.
a little bit different.
When you have all the beauty and glamour up at Bedrock, and then here,
Train
right on
through.
cue, we've got Amtrak running past.
This is a rare time of year where it's a green carpet that we have out here.
Yeah.
So it doesn't look like this in the summer, is what you're saying?
This vineyard was planted in the 1890s on these 40-foot banks of beach sand, which is really, really unique. We're about a mile from the Sacramento River Delta, or actually where the San Joaquin River and the Sacramento River come together and then head out into the bay. And so the result of that is you had all these different rivers that flow into those, like the Tuolumne, the McCollum, everything flowing out of the Sierra Nevada. And they washed all this granite basically off the face of the Sierra Nevada, and over, eons and eons, there's just like this triangle right here on the edge of Oakley and Antioch where they just deposited these really, really deep banks of freshwater sand.
Well, we've gotten rain, but you can see it looks like beach sand underneath.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's really one of the defining characters out here. And so Phylloxera, which is the root louse that kind of destroyed the entire industry in the 1870s, the one thing that's kind of like its kryptonite is silica. It's sand, so we don't have Phylloxera out here. So these are really rare in that the vines here planted in the 1890s like literally root to almost 35 feet on their own roots.
Oh, wow.
So you don't have
Incredible.
you don't have a rootstock like kind of taking part in the conversation.
Yeah.
One of the defining characters of this area is the sand. The nearly constant wind during the growing season coming off of the delta. So as the interior of the state heats up, that pulls all the cold air off of the coast. During the growing season, it's very common to have like 10 to 20 mile per hour winds all afternoon, which causes the vines to kind of go into hibernation in the afternoon, like literally over 9 miles per hour. The stomata on the leaves, the way the grapes respire, they just shut down. So during the heat of the afternoon, the vines kind of like stop respiring, which is the reason why we have such bright acidities out here, even though it's quite warm, which is really cool.
It'll get up to 100 degrees out here pretty consistently, but to vines, the site actually acts like a cold climate site or a colder climate site. Evangelho is always one of the most elegant, pretty wines that we make compared to Bedrock, where we were, which has more basalt, so you get more structure on those wines than out here.
You hardly think that this is going to be like one of the most elegant, high-tone, lacy wines that we make when it's like power plant, warehousing, going like all the other stuff.
I think Frank is looking down on us right now.
Wow, we got a
'cause
full rainbow.
There's a rainbow happening with us here. I mean,
Right
welcome,
there.
guys. I mean,
It's the if that doesn't capture the dichotomy of Antioch, though, a rainbow behind a power plant,
And I can hear the power lines
exactly,
buzzing
like
above my
whistling
head.
overhead.
it's the trippiest vineyard you could argue in all of California. I mean,
What was the cause to plant this so long ago? I mean, what was the thoughts behind it, do you think?
So this was actually originally planted by Azorean fishermen that were actually came here, but were attracted to be by the delta because of all the fishing. But they grew grapes, they grew apricots, and they grew almonds out here on the sands. And up until like 30 years ago, this whole area was 90% agriculture, and now it's 90% housing tracts, like residential business warehouses. And we continually see every year vineyards getting torn out here for housing. And sort of like, when we bought this vineyard from Frank in 2017, we pretty much made the promise that we would not do that and, respect his legacy. And as a result, it wouldn't surprise me if another 10 or 20 years, whether this is like truly maybe one of the last vineyards left out here.
It's a weight to shoulder.
Yeah.
Seriously, that's a weight to shoulder.
It's a wild place to farm. I mean, Casey, who farms out here, like, it's just like you're truly in sort of like it's sort of a dystopic edge of society in some ways.
Our cameraman is actually originally from Antioch.
Right?
And you ask anyone from Antioch, do you know that you have some of the oldest own rooted vines in the world in your backyard that makes some of the most celebrated and unique California wine in the state? They're like, what are you talking about? The more and more we're able to talk about the vineyard, the more and more like people in Contra Costa County will recognize how special this vineyard is, and maybe we'll be able to save a couple more. And as you can see right over there, our neighbors are
Some
building a
warehouses.
100,000 square foot warehouse, and that used to all be old vine vineyards. So,
Yeah.
So that was a vineyard that was just supplanted
and
recently.
it used to all be Evangelo, but then it got split up years ago with a different family. But yeah, I mean, literally
10 months ago, that was a vineyard
10 months ago,
that
was
looked
it.
like this.
10 months
Wow.
ago, that was a vineyard, and now they're about to put up a warehouse.
Yeah.
Are there policies or practices that could be put in place to make this a historical landmark?
Yeah,
To
so
really protect it as if it was a national park?
Morgan's president of the board of the Historic Vineyard Society.
Yeah, looking at conservation easements, which I think is something that could potentially be done maybe more in Sonoma than here. What's really tricky here is that because this is a bifurcated ownership where we actually lease some of the land from PG&E,
Right.
we can't really like run an easement for them. The real question is whether the tax breaks or benefits that might come from a easement like that equals the amount a developer might offer you. If you're a farmer and your kids aren't interested in taking over and you're like getting towards the end of your career, that's like generational money, because you can't blame people, but then at the same time you see this like incredible resource that's truly underneath a full rainbow. I've never seen this out here
I've never
before.
seen this either.
I believe there's an old saying though that says don't build a house on sand, so maybe we won't get any housing out here.
Yeah, I wish. So.
Despite the magic of that ridiculous rainbow, Evangelho and other Contra Costa vineyards are unfortunately under threat from development. The tragedy of this tale is simple. The people that drive by this place every day have no idea that they have a world-class wine gem in their backyard. How can people fight to preserve something they don't even know exists?
So after the rainbow and all that majesticness, what do we have here?
So we were talking about how vines here are own rooted, and what that means is that they're not grafted onto a rootstock.
Yeah.
Very, very rare. Only like 1% of the vines left in the world are actually on their own roots, and they can do that because they're in the sand. But it's also really quite windy here. So what you really see, and I've never seen this at really any other vineyard in the world, is that here the sand has literally been blown away by the wind and the dunes as the dunes shift. And these are all old roots that used to be active roots that are just hanging out in the air. And you can see this vine still survives based off of this root that probably goes down for another 15, 20 feet. And I'm looking at how healthy this vine is and how big the canopy is. This root goes down so deep that's keeping this sustained and still providing crop 130 years in. When we bought this vineyard in 2017, 94% of the vines were the original vines, which is just
Crazy.
unheard of. But the fact that you could have a vineyard that was planted in the 1890s and 130 years later only like 6% of the vines were missing is just kind of mind-boggling
Right.
in the viticultural world.
So cool. It's a dinosaur.
It is truly a dinosaur.
So we talked about some of the crazy things about this vineyard, right? But let's talk grapes. What varietals are out here? Is it just one or is there lots?
Yeah, so like when we were at Bedrock Vineyard, right, that's a crazy field blend, right, of 29 varieties. This is still a field blend, but it's a smaller field blend, and kind of the vineyard's divided up into like 3 sections. There's the Zinfandel section that bleeds into the Mourvèdre section that then bleeds into the Carignan section. But then in the middle of sort of where all those 3 different meet, there's this little 3/4 of an acre block that was actually Frank Evangelo's favorite block. And
So when we were under the rainbow and you were like, Frank's looking down on us, that's what you were talking about.
yeah.
Okay,
Frank
got it.
Evangelho, who we bought the vineyard from, Frank's family had been farming it since the 1930s. And really, Frank Evangelho was the first person out in Contra Costa to get higher end more famous winemakers to buy fruit from here. We started working with the vineyard in 2011, and then we really started to kind of have a little bit more influence and take over the farming 2014, 2015. And then finally in 2017, we inked the deal. Frank had worked all his life, and finally he was able to kind of retire. 6 months later after we bought it, Frank passed away.
Oh, wow.
So starting in 2017, because this was his favorite little block, because unlike the rest of the blocks, this is the most mixed. But also there's some Palomino here, there's some Mission.
Wait. There's Palomino here?
You're gonna.
So wait, we're getting sherry soon?
You are getting sherry, actually. Yeah, you are getting sherry. We now vinify this wine separately, and we call it Ario Evangelho Vineyard, which is sand, wind, and love.
Oh,
that's kind
beautiful.
of our ode to Frank, and we put Frank on the label. We would never change the name. This is Evangelho.
Yeah.
This is his spot, and his soul is still here, as you can see with the rainbow.
Saudades Frank.
Yeah.
Truly fitting backdrop of Frank's block 1890s planted with just a warehouse going up. And I mean, if you can't capture the dichotomy of place much more starkly than I think that. And then gorgeous sunset going down behind, Mount Diablo back there as well.
How pissed would Frank be?
I think he would be pissed about the warehouse, and I think he'd be really glad to know that the warehouse is not ending over here, which is what the developers wanted.
Yeah.
Because we said no.
Frank's block is literally holding him back.
Yeah,
Frank's
I'm not sure he's going to love his new view, but,
I've always heard this vineyard is special. I just spent a half hour looking at a rainbow and sitting in the rain. When is the moment that you were here that it became special to you?
Our friend Tegan at Turley, who's just like, hey, Frank's got a little bit of extra fruit available. I'm driving down 4 in our old rickety bobtail, and I'm looking and I'm seeing like the pulsing lights of like the power plant in the background. What the hell is this place? And we just picked a little bit of Zinfandel. We picked some Mourvèdre. We picked some Carignan. It was like one of the best wines in the winery this year. And it was just literally just ad hoc. You can make a wine that is that good in a challenging year,
Right.
just based on just like scraps, basically. Just imagine what you can do if you actually can like put it together with some purpose. It's so stark, and I think people get kind of put off by, the fact that you're surrounded by power lines and all this other stuff. But I think there's actually something really beautiful about it. That's one of the great things about wine, is you see the intersection between a history of place, and then you also get something delicious from it as well, which is just very, very cool.
And the power lines don't affect the vines. Sometimes, people get really either turned on by the power lines and see the trippy, beautiful nature of it, and other people are like horrified.
Yeah.
But they don't affect the vine.
We were standing there looking at the rainbow, and you said Frank is looking out for us. Frank is watching over us.
Yeah. When we bought the vineyard, Frank was like, "Are you going to change the name?" We were like, "Of course not. Like, this is Evangelho. There's a terroir of the sand, the wind, the varieties we have out here. It's all very unique, but the terroir of Evangelho is also Frank himself. He's the one that was the steward and really took this place to another level. So like, this is Frank's place, and it will always be Frank's place. Our motivation is saving old vines, keeping viticulture out in Contra Costa County, but also there's always this sort of in the back of our head is making Frank proud with like the legacy that we're continuing. Yeah, Evangelho is Frank's terroir as much as anything else.
It obviously has a special place in your heart.
Yeah. I fucking love this vineyard.
Well, I'm really, really happy you all brought us out here.
Yeah,
It's
perfect.
a schlep, but it's worth it.
Right?
Well,
Yeah.
let's go to the tasting room, and we'll drink a bottle of the very rare, like 75 case Frank's block.
Literally.
Ario Evangelho Vineyard.
I'll let you come this time. Okay.
It's gonna blow your mind.
Find winemakers that are in tune with the deep roots of winemaking. Because wine is soulful. Wine by nature has heart, it has story, and that is what is so intoxicating. To industrial produce something that by nature has so much soul is like a dull rainbow with 2 colors. You want to drink better wine, then you have to accept that the market-driven point score system thing will never tell you a story. Instead, we ask who planted the vines, when were they planted, what is the history and the geography, who tends the vines and picked the fruit, who crafted the wine, and how did the bottle make its way to you? Wine is nothing but story. You just have to make sure you're listening.
energy.
Let's
Forget
go.
the tire. Forget the tire.
Get the tire. They've got one in Brentwood.
Where the fuck is Brentwood? You mean in LA?
The wrong direction.
That's actually a little better.
In
But
LA?
it's much better. Much better. Wrong Brentwood.
We're going to fucking LA?